I am a journalist, I am a developer, I've won awards, I've been yelled at, I've been cursed at by the head of the California Democratic Party. So it's all very exciting. It's something that doesn't happen when you're working in an actuary's office writing code to input medical payments or something. Although we actually do that. So the name of my talk is Journalism and Code, News Apps at ProPublica. I'm Jeff Larson. I've been doing this for about 4 years. I thought I was also going to be a webmaster, but that didn't pan out really. So I'm going to give you a short history of data journalism. We like to call it, we have an equally ridiculous term for it. We call it computer-assisted reporting. What does that mean? It's like everybody writes email, but everybody tweets. So the first example of computer-assisted reporting is in 1952. Is the Univac computer that was used for the census tabulation. But CBS News had this great idea that what they were going to do is they were going to predict the election on election night, right? So like before the election came in, just like how the Times does, they were going to call it, like this is going to happen. And there's Walter Cronkite, just kind of doing his thing. And this is the results, and I love it. I love how polite this computer is. This is the most polite computer I've ever seen. And I'm sorry for the webcast, but it says, it's awfully early, but I'll go out on a limb. Eisenhower is going to win. The chances are now 0-1 in favor of Eisenhower. And I think it was wrong by 4 electoral votes. Pretty good. Pretty good for a computer the size of this room. So we're going to fast forward a little bit. This kind of goes back to data journalism and databases in journalism. We have this guy, Philip Meyer, writes this book called The New Precision Journalism. And basically his whole idea was, hey, let's use some statistical methods to figure out what's going on out in the world. So his big thing was surveys, and he wrote a story that's actually really great about the Detroit riots and why some people rioted and why other people rioted. And he went out and asked, and it turned out like a lot of people, I think, just were kind of drunk and just wanted to run and stuff. So it's a good story, you should check it out. And then we have PolitiFact, which is Matt Waite. Matt Waite won the Pulitzer Prize for a news application. We claim it's a news application. Other people claimed it was a website, but it had structured data, and it followed, you guys have probably seen it, but in 2008 it followed the lies and truths that politicians didn't tell. And it got a Pulitzer Prize, so that's a very funny picture. If you ever see him, make fun of him for that. Brings us back to ProPublica. So PolitiFact is right on the cusp of when we started doing it. There's also the team at the New York Times, and I hadn't yet joined ProPublica, or I was on my way there, but it kind of like woke us all up in the news, like, whoa, we can like do stuff online. We can collect data. We can tell stories within a different framework. We don't have to necessarily stick with just the written word, and we can also do data analysis. Like how Univac did. But we can bring that not just to breaking news things like elections, but we can do deep dives into, like Steve said, our Doc Dollars database, or even email targeting, or privacy online. So our mission statement at ProPublica is to expose abuses of power, betrayals of the public trust by government, business, and other institutions using moral force of investigative journalism to spur reform through the sustained spotlight of wrongdoing. And in the news apps department, we do that with code. And we have a very specific kind of way that we try and tell these stories that is maybe not is not so obvious if you don't exactly know what's going on. So I'm going to walk you through how we do those things. So here's kind of like my theory of how to tell stories through a news app. What we have is we have this concept of the far and the near. You want to see the big story up front, and you also want to be able to say, hey, what's happening down the block from me? And this is something that's unique with code, right? You can't tell both of those stories for every single person on the printed page. So what we have here, this is a screenshot from our schools app that we did. and it shows the AP pass rate versus AP enrollment by state. It also allows you to see, like, you know, are more people passing AP classes in Illinois than Chicago or California. So you can see on your state level how well your state is doing in academic performance. But then what we also have is this is really great. We have this near view. And our story was that we ran some statistical analysis and we found out that when kids go to schools that are poorer schools, and we use that through free and reduced price lunch. We figured that out through free and reduced price lunch. The number of students that got free and reduced price lunch, they have less access to AP courses. So they have less access to succeed. And so what we have on our website is you can type in your school and you can compare it to a poor school near you or a richer school near you. And this tells our story for us. Because what you can see, and there's a little bit of explanatory guff, but you can see that in Arletta High, 97% get free and reduced price lunch. There's only 9% of them that have access or take at least one AP course. Whereas in Beverly Hills High, 6%, that's 90210, right? So 29% take an AP course and 83% pass. So that's like access to education. So we try and do that near and far idea in our news apps. We also make sure that everybody gets byline, that we write a little lead that just says, hey, here's what it is, right? Just here's what you're looking at. Bylines are important so that people know who they can yell at. And then, often we do real-time data analysis. So this is a news application that we did during the political season last year, looking at political targeting in your email inbox from political campaigns. And what this shows is we did all this crazy, fancy, like Univac stuff with decision trees and natural language processing. And we were able to find out that the Obama campaign in particular, and sometimes the Romney campaign, but the Obama campaign in particular knew a whole bunch about you. So they knew how much they were listening to, how much you've donated before, how much they predict you're going to donate. They knew where you lived. And you would get those really silly emails would actually be tailored to you in particular. And this is a really simple one, right? This one's just for Pennsylvania and in North Carolina. If you lived in North Carolina, they wanted you to go to Tennessee. And if you lived in New York, they wanted you to go to Pennsylvania. To kind of bug everybody. So we do real-time data analysis. We also tell you another form of our news applications is we tell you what's happening right now. This is our political action committee tracker, which in real time would tell you what each political action committee like American Crossroads, Priorities USA Action was spending and who they were giving money to. So who was profiting off of all of this political expenditure money. I think my colleague made this, I think he made this in a hack day because he saw a demo of this that the New York Times was going to do, and he went home and he made it in 24 hours. So, and he came in on Monday and he was like, guys, we got to get this up because we're going to beat the New York Times. And then we also, every once in a while, we'll tell you what will happen next month. We're in the forecasting game. This is an investigation we did into unemployment insurance. And so every state in the United States has an unemployment trust fund where they collect taxes and then they pay out benefits for people who are unemployed. Now, in 2008, times have been so good that they spent a large portion of their unemployment, like trust funds, like their rainy day fund on roads and schools or whatever. And so when the financial crisis hit and there were just a very small amount, actually a huge amount, sorry, of unemployment, you can see that this is, what is this? Oklahoma's trust fund reserves start going down. But this portion right here is the favorite thing I've ever done in my whole entire life, where it says future. That right there, we stopped it in January because it didn't make any sense. Our model stopped making enough sense. But in January, we predicted that they would go insolvent in 6 months or less, and they went insolvent in March and started borrowing from the federal government. And in the end, we predicted, I think there were something like 40 states, 39 out of 50. We predicted 39 out of 50 right, but that's just because one state took like a big lump sum for their unemployment insurance. It wasn't part of our model. So we also sometimes do interesting thought experiments, and I know Steve really likes this one, but this is close to home. We did this investigation into the efficacy of the Housing and Urban Development in the 1968 Fair Housing Act, which is supposed to curb segregation in America's cities. It turns out Westchester just kind of didn't do that, right? Like they just kind of didn't. So what we did is we decided to show Westchester black households as they exist today. So you can see there's a lot down here in the south. There are whole townships up in the north that don't have any black households at all. And what we wanted to show is we wanted to show where would African American households live if they lived near people with the same income as them, if race weren't a factor. And so we talked with a bunch of academics and we ran a bunch of calculations, and it actually turns out they would live pretty much everywhere in Westchester instead of just the south. So you can see the numbers here. Mount Vernon has 15,000 African American households and would only have 2,000 if this kind of this migration happened. So let's see, the next one we have, so that's what if. So we do a lot of what ifs using math and analysis. And then we also deal with many gigabytes of data. So this is it's from 1890 to today, essentially. African Americans who used to be concentrated in the South moved to northern cities. But what happened when they moved to northern cities is they landed in a neighborhood and they just stayed there. And there was no integration happening for many years. And so what we did, so this looks like a simple one, but this is 28 gigabytes of data, 110 years, and we're gonna watch it in less than 30 seconds. So if you move your mouse over the map, wait, let me start over. 1940, you can see African Americans moving into the cities and staying there. So if you watch Chicago, if you watch Southside Chicago, I'll start it over. You can see they just move in there and they just stay. And that's on that's 60% black, like no integration. You can also see the same thing with New York. You can see that they move into places in the Bronx, in Brooklyn, and Queens.
Jeff?
Yeah.
Did you look at all the remigration of blacks down to the South in the 2010 census?
No, it's too new. It actually only goes up to 2000 because they changed all the fields and NHCIS didn't have that, so we didn't actually look at that.
Can
But,
also,
yeah.
the fact that you do real-time data analysis and news reporting based on it, how difficult it is?
It's very difficult.
What are the challenges as a reporter on one hand, and what would you expect from somebody on the technical side to help you with?
Let me circle back to that after I finish the rest of the talk, but I will definitely, that's a very good question. So that is our gigabytes of data. That's the best example. And then the other thing that we do sometimes, because we don't have a million reporters, we're a newsroom of 35, we ask our audience for help. So we got 600 people to TV stations in the United States are supposed to disclose how much they're getting for political ad spending, right? But it turns out that there's no centralized database, or there wasn't at the beginning of this thing. So you would have to go, if you were the concerned citizen that I know you guys all are, you would go down to your TV station, and you would say, how much is so-and-so spending on your TV, on my local TV station? And then you would have to go to like the CBS affiliate, the ABC affiliate, and they would hand you a piece of paper. And they would charge you for copies if you wanted to take that piece of paper out. So what the FCC did is they made all the TV stations scan all of those and upload them to a website, but the website was just scanned PDFs. And in fact, if you tried to put in structured data, if you tried to upload in Excel, it would turn it into a PDF. Which is just like sad times, right? So, like not how you're supposed to do data. So what we did is we put together this news application where we asked people to actually look at those scanned PDFs, tell us 4 or 5 different points of data, and 4 or 5 points of data, like who they bought it for, who they bought it on behalf of, how much it was, and like a tracking number. And by the end of the campaign, I think we started halfway through the campaign. By the end, we had logged $1.6 billion worth of ad buys. Some of that's overlap. That's probably an overestimation because there are some summary reports or duplicates or whatever. But you can basically see, like, swingy states get a lot of money. Oh no. Okay, so, oh no. Okay, that's why I shouldn't talk so much. And then another thing, this is another theme of journalism that we do. We point out contradictions, right? We point out when officials lie to you, you kind of want to say that. So this is the Obama administration's drone claims. And the ones in black are specific facts about the drone program. And the ones in red are them saying the drone program doesn't exist, or there are no specific facts about the drone program. And you can follow it over and you can just kind of read along. And just as it goes along, apparently it still doesn't exist, right? Like you can't know anything about it. Okay. Dollars for Docs, find your own story. This is another one you can find you could put in, Steve talked about it. And then the final thing that I put together, one of the greatest parts of this job is like you both get tons of data and you get to experiment because we're all trying to figure it out. So I put together my Hack Day project that I put together a couple weeks ago that we didn't end up using is this map of the United States, but it's in 3D. So if you guys ever figure out a use case for this, just let me know because I think it's really cool. So that's News Apps of Republica. Thank you.